Again, the research has been done to confirm and to check and to confirm and to check and confirm the sources of information. So what I'm providing for you today is actually fact. And if you can check it yourself, you'll find it's irrefutable. The information is there in the public domain. But even still, you have to do some digging on this. Cattle mutilation. This phenomenon of cattle mutilation, what is it? Let me just backtrack, and I find that we're perfectly overlapping, guys, in our presentation today. We're talking about the same thing, and I'm just going to echo again what my brothers have said. Concerning the blood, the scripture says in Leviticus 17, verse 14 to 16, for the life of every creature, its blood is its life. I'm taking it from the Complete Jewish Bible. Therefore I said to the people of Israel, you are not to eat the blood of any creature, because the life of every creature is its blood. Whoever eats it will be cut off. Anyone eating an animal that dies naturally or is torn to death by wild animals, whether he is a citizen or a foreigner, is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He will be unclean even until evening, then he will be clean. But if he doesn't wash them or bathe his body, he will bear the consequences of his wrongdoing. So it's very clear from scripture, this whole crossing, this taking of blood from a dead animal or even a live one is forbidden. It is an abomination to follow. But yet, we find that everything is about the blood. The crossing today, as you heard, about the blood. The mixing, not just of human DNA, but insect and animal DNA is being mixed with humans. And DNA, as you know, is in the blood. It goes back to Genesis chapter 6, as VJ and Cliff alluded to earlier. An interesting text in the Bible that really and truly, without Genesis chapter 6, without the correct understanding, you will never really understand the Bible. Please hear me. This sets the scene for everything throughout the Bible. This is the war at its height. It came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the Benai Elohim, the sons of God, saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Do not be fooled by man trying to rationalize this text and bring it down a few notches and say this was just the obedient sons of God with disobedient women or ungodly women. No. Because the term Benai Elohim is never used in reference to human beings anywhere in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament. It always refers to angelic beings. In the New Testament, Shaul says, now we are become as, or like the sons of God, because of the righteousness of Yeshua being imparted upon us. But we are not literally Benai Elohim. So, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Right there it tells you. Yet this day shall be 120 years. So that's the delineation of time, flood. But there's also reference, and I was speaking to Cliff to speak about jubilees being referred to in this passage of text. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after the flood. And I wish I could, in the talk on giants, we'll go into this. When the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men of old, men of renown. All about the mixing of bloodlines, the mixing of one species, which should never, according to the book of Enoch, there was never meant to be this crossbreeding. The term that was used is crossing the stalls. And this crossbreeding happened with every living creature on the earth. They were mixing different species, playing God on the earth. But then now we have the intermixing of angelic entities with man, and even with animals. Where do you think the Egyptians, it's not the Egyptians. Whoever inhabited the land before the Egyptians, the Egyptians say, these pyramids and these columns were here before us. So when you're seeing humanoid body and head of a dog, it is not an imagination. It's something that they saw at the time. You will go to the British Museum and you will see images like this and glyphs like this. And it's very simple to understand. Divine entities that fly as with wings or fly in the sky, who are all seeing, heard the term watchers before in your Bible? They are watchers over mankind, over humanity, who are giving information to and knowledge to mankind, to an elite, to a choice people. certain individuals who have the ability to receive this knowledge, and you will see these kind of crowns, these kind of hats. And in many cultures around the world, they've found these crowns, and many believe they are some form of receptacle. They're able to receive information somehow. And they found these crowns even in England, all over Europe. And they look exactly like this really weird looking crowns, elongated crowns. Not just elongated skulls, but very long crowns. They look ridiculous, but for some reason we find them in Egypt, we find them in Europe. But they are the watchers, and the Bible tells us it was the watchers, and Enoch as well, the watchers are the ones who sinned in this transgression in Genesis chapter 6, by interbreeding with man. And here we have this humanoid figure with the head of a bird, and we always believe it's just a mythical figure. Oh, no. We always do that when we don't understand stuff, we just reason it away, make it rational. The whole pantheon of gods of Egypt were all Nephilim or Raphaim. The whole pantheon of gods of Egypt was what Yahweh was judging. He wasn't just judging Pharaoh and Egyptians. He was judging the power that they placed in there, or the belief and the power of their gods over them, to show that your gods are no gods to me. Yet their magicians, Janus and Jambres, were able to replicate 3 of the miracles that Moses was able to do. So they had real occult power. It was God versus God, so to speak, small g. It was war in the heavenlies on the earth. It was a big showdown, a big rumble in the jungle of all time. And it's coming back again. It's coming back again. Because the same plagues you read about in Exodus, guess what? In the book of Hippolyte, Revelations, you will see it again. The book of Hazan, Revelation, Visions. The North American and South American Indians, and I'm not even getting to the cattle mutilation yet, but this is the foundation for it. The American Indians recorded how they saw giants and they warred with the giants. And there's a whole testament of how their people fought with them. And these giants were red-haired, extremely large, able to run, chase down buffalo and catch buffalo under their arms and rip them from limb to limb. They had rows of teeth that were able to eat through bone. Red hair, and they lived where the Indians knew where they lived, but there was constant strife between them. All of this is a great war that was fought in heaven. The same strife, the same war is playing out again on the earth. Hence why this presentation is very important for us to be aware of. And I want to say this, as I was listening to VJ speak today, I really want to say to you, the key for you and I is the power of prayer. Because I had to go and have some inoculations when I was going to Ethiopia. And when they showed me the chart, oh, you're going to one of the worst places in the world. And I was like, wow. And they showed me, they fill you with fear. And you think, my kids, they need their father. If I go to Ethiopia, and I've spoken with a few other speakers who had gone abroad, and they told their horror stories of how they got malaria, and it was terrible, they died, or something. I don't want to go through that. I need to work, I need to provide, I need to be around for my children. I go to the doctor and they tell me, yeah, you're going to receive all red. Ethiopia is just red. You need everything. I thought, I don't trust any of this stuff. I remembered Shaul when he was bitten by the snake. I said, Father, I'm trusting you. You know I'm doing what I honestly know is the best thing for me and my children, but I don't trust them. I don't believe them. I know the goal. I know the plan. I'm trusting you that whatever they put in my body, it will do my body no harm. You will just take it out. It will have no effect. I had one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. When I get to Ethiopia, what do they tell me? Oh, when they built the palace of Gondar, they built it at the altitude where mosquitoes cannot live. So I remember the chart. I'm thinking, wait a minute, they told me it was dangerously high. Infection levels are high, but mosquitoes cannot live. See, in Africa, they know some things. That knowledge they don't tell us here. So they don't worry about, I didn't have to worry about mosquitoes. Wow. But this knowledge, did they tell you this? No. Let's move on. So mutilation, so the war in heaven is unfolding here on earth. It's that we don't know much about what's going on. Hopefully after this presentation, you'll see just how real this war is. Mutilations across the United States. There's a lot of information, so please bear with me. 1973, the modern Catholic mutilation wave can be said to have begun in earnest. It is interesting to note that a huge UFO flak was occurring across the country in 1973. So where we see the Catholic mutilation phenomenon, UFOs, sightings of lights in fields and in the sky at night. With many sightings taking place in the same areas that Catholic mutilations were happening. In November of 1974, rumors began to connect the sightings of UFOs with mutilated cows that were being found in large numbers in various Minnesota counties. Dozens of UFOs were reported in Minnesota, and dozens of cattle were found dead and mutilated. Although the sightings and mutilations were never correlated, many felt that the number of sightings was added proof that the UFOs were somehow involved. 1975. An unprecedented onslaught of strange deaths spread across the western PWC thirds of the United States. Mutilation reports peaked in that year, accompanied by accounts of UFOs and unidentified helicopters. Keep that in mind. By 1979, numerous livestock mutilations were also being reported in Canada, primarily in Alberta. I can't pronounce this next, Saskatchewan. In 1980, there was an increase in activity in the United States. Mutilations have been reported less frequently since that year, though this may be due in part to an increased reluctance to report mutilations on the part of ranchers and farmers. In the 1990s, the mutilations have continued in the United States. Over 10,000 animals have reportedly died under unusual circumstances. And this is a genuine image of, forgive the low resolution, but I want you to pay attention to, real quick, notice how clean these cuts are. The first thing we'll say, well, animals, wild animals, bears, whatever. But when animals attack other animals, they rip. You'll see lacerations where you see claws, bite marks. Notice this is a very clean incision mark. Okay? Just drawing your attention to that. And you'll also notice that the wounds, and I do again say the images are very graphic, so hope you haven't eaten anything just yet. We have a strong constitution. You'll notice the wounds and the injuries begin to look the same. All over America, they found animals in power lines. You know the Americans and their power lines above ground. There's power lines all over the place. So, in what they found, I'm not going to skip through some of the presentation, they found that in many cases, there is no sighting of any human individual or any human interference with the animals. Yet these animals are turning up dead, and then oftentimes in trees, on top of houses, on top of power lines, as though they were just dropped. And the wounds are, what's what I'm looking for, conducive to impact. So they can see that there are some injuries that can't be explained, but in others which are due to sudden and hard impact. So it was proven to be dropped and hit the ground or hit something hard. Again, a close inspection. All soft tissue cleanly cuts away, like I'm using a laser light here, cleanly cuts away on both sides. But yet, if it's an animal, what about the rest of the meat? There's plenty of good meat there to be eaten. If you're a wild animal, why leave all the best bits? That's like Christmas right there for them. Again, forgive the imagery, I did say it's strong, but the wounds are the same. You may laugh, but the wounds are the same. The removing of the groin area. Again, I did say the images are quite strong. Removing of the groin area, all soft tissue gone. Ears, eyes, tongue, mouth, completely removed. Again, this stumps all pathologists and field experts, and there's more information to come about this, which makes it quite unique. Again, I said, there's a pattern they found to all of this. And you'll notice foxes as well. This was just down to cattle, specifically Angus as well. Angus beef, those of you that love Burger King. Yeah? Oh dear. Right. These are some of the common traits that they find in these mutilations. No blood whatsoever. This is a process known as exsanguination, is that correct? Exsanguination, it's difficult enough to perform in a medical or mortuary setting, but to do so in a natural setting in a field without any evidence of bleeding would be a challenging task. Yet it is the hallmark of an animal mutilation. In all these cases, there's no blood. How do you kill an animal and drain its blood and not lose a drop? How do you do that? No blood in the animal and no blood in the surrounding crime scene. Trying to do a murder with no blood. You know what the police do when they want to track down? They put spray the UV around and turn the lights off, put the UV lights on, and see blood speckles everywhere. We didn't see blood speckles. This would not be so in this case. No blood anywhere whatsoever. No animal or human tracks. Animals dropped from above, as I said before, jaw swipe as they call it. This term refers to stripping of all muscle and soft tissue on one or both sides of the animal's jaw, right down to the bone. This stripping usually occurs on the left side of the animal's face, but not always. It can occur on either side, and on some occasions both sides of the jaw are cut away in this manner, removing of other vital organs and soft tissue. The bull's penis and scrotum and cow's teats and udder have also been neatly removed. In addition, hindquarters of mutilated animals often show evidence of anal coring, and the key word there is the coring. So you know how you get an apple and you remove the core? You have one of those little cute devices where you just push it in nice and perfect, hopefully that is nice and cute. Right? That's what's happened to all of these animals. They've had their anuses cored out. A procedure whereby the anus is cored out to a depth of several inches. Anal coring along with smaller circular or teardrop-shaped apertures. I'm talking very small pinprick holes are found on these carcasses. In the torso appear to be teardrop-shaped apertures in the torso appear to be surgical orifices used for removal of the animal's internal organs. The pathological report from Lady, the horse carried out in 1967. So one of the first cases was a horse called Lady. And they found that Lady had these not huge holes, looking very small holes. Incisions were in Lady's torso, and oftentimes you find in the forehead. But this is common to all the mutilations, along with the fact that there's no blood, soft tissue, certain organs, key organs are always removed. There's these holes. It's believed that these holes are incisions where they extract the brain. Extract the brain is sucked out, liquefied and sucked out. Remember how they do mummification? Yeah? So forgive me if this stuff is strong, but I have to give you information. They extract the brain. This is the planet of America, and these are all the known sites. The known sites across the United States where cattle mutilation has been found. We're talking thousands, it's running into the millions of dollars of cattle that just literally, within the space of an hour or two, this whole process, if you can imagine, this is some seriously advanced science, but this whole process is happening within the space of a couple of hours. How do you do that? Again, witnesses who own these farms, people who have been hikers at night and seen strange lights. They testified to seeing flying saucer objects, lights coming down, and cattle literally being lifted off the ground purely by light, not with any other physical device. Some of them are escorted by these mysterious black helicopters, black ops helicopters, or sometimes these black ops helicopters come in after. But it's definitely proven that there is some kind of collusion going on between government bodies and these entities. I want to be very clear with you. I do not believe in aliens that come from another planet. I'm going somewhere with this. And it's not just me, these guys who work with the Black Ops units will say this. This is a pathology report which will be on the presentation, so I'll skip through this for time's sake. Let's go back in time. So Lady is one of the first cases where they examined and found the same things I just said to you. This is actually Lady. So bloodless, soft tissue removed, brain, tongue, genital organs removed, everything. Stumped state investigators even to this day. The report is still there and no one can explain the cause of death. John Keel mentioned investigating, John Keel's a famous writer, mentioned a parallel investigator as well, investigating animal mutilation cases in 1966, while with Ivan T. Sanderson, that were being reported in the upper Ohio River Valley around Gallipolis, Ohio, I think that is. The phenomenon remained largely unknown outside cattle-raising communities until 1967, when Pueblo chieftain in Pueblo, Colorado, published a story about a horse named Lady near Alamosa, Colorado, that was mysteriously killed and mutilated. The story was republished by the wider press and distributed nationwide. This case was the first to feature speculation that extraterrestrial beings and unidentified flying objects were associated with this mutilation. September 9, 1967, Agnes King and her son Harry found the dead body of their 3-year-old horse. Notice the age, 3 years of age. Lady's head and neck had been skinned, defleshed, and the body displayed cuts that to King looked very precise. No blood was at the scene, according to Harry, and a strong medicinal odor was in the air. A subsequent investigation concluded there were no earthly causes of death. This is not me reporting, this is what the pathologist unit found. I can't even read this, my goodness. 2 days after the lady's body was found, the pathologist named John Henry Alschuler, MD, examined the horse's carcass according to testimony he provided years later. Quote, "When I got to the horse, I could see that it was cut from neck down to the base of the chest in a vertical clean incision. At the edge of the cut, there was a darkened color as if the flesh had been opened and cauterized with a surgical cauterizing blade. The outer edges of the cut skin were firm, almost as if they had been cauterized with a modern-day laser. But there was no surgical laser technology like this in 1967. I cut tissue samples from the hard, darker edge. Later, I viewed the tissue under a microscope at the cellular level. There was discoloration and destruction consistent with changes caused by burning, in other words, laser. Then inside the horse's chest, I remember the look of organs. Was it, remember the lack of organs? Lack, I remember the lack of organs. Organs are missing. Whoever did the cutting took the horse's heart, lungs, and thyroid, what's that? Mediastatum, oh, that is, forgive me, I'm not a specialist in the medical area. Central chest compartments for organs, in other words, was completely empty. So the chest cavity was completely empty of organs and dry. How do you get the heart out without blood? It was an incredible dissection of organs without any evidence of blood. I'm going to skip some of this for time's sake, but it is available in the presentation. Again, more cases all across the Colorado region of cows being mutilated throughout the 60s and 70s. This lady has done most of the pioneering work in bringing all of this information, not just in the US, but her work is extremely thorough. She's an award-winning journalist, TV producer. She's produced many documentaries on a range of subjects. She's an Emmy Award-winning writer. This is the woman, Linda Moulton Howe. I've been following her now for, 20 years or so. This woman really knows how to investigate a matter. She doesn't care for just reports from people. She gets everything together. She collects all the information, and she gets eyewitnesses and doctors, pathology reports, the lot. She's very thorough. In her book, A Strange Harvest, and Glimpses of Other Realities are bestsellers on this phenomenon and subject, as well as other things she researches. So you can check out her information on earthfiles.com. I do recommend you go to her because she collates all of the evidence, all of the testimonies and eyewitness accounts. She records them and documents them and puts them up there on the website for all of us to research. She's been following this case of cattle mutilation since the 60s and documenting strange phenomena. For example, why in all of the cases of cattle mutilation do wild animals go nowhere near the carcass? It's free food just sitting there to be eaten. Wolves will come and devour. So much meat is sitting there, bone, fresh. They will not touch it. Birds, scavenger birds, will not touch it. Why would the ground around the animal have radiation? Why? And again, I said before, no blood whatsoever. Surely there must be some tracks of a few redneck guys in the truck rolling up doing something. No car tracks, no human tracks at all. The only thing we have is consistent with all these sightings is sightings of lights. And then the black helicopters turn up at some point. Lights, strange lights, orbs. Some orbs small, like maybe the size of a melon, to some huge lights, and then sometimes some unidentified flying object, which doesn't make a sound. You've seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you know what I'm talking about. Turn up on the scene, and that's when these mutilations happen. And I said before, it's not all night. Literally within the space of an hour or two, it's all done. So pretty soon the FBI get involved, after state senators write, to get the government involved in this. When news of the cow abductions reached the White House in 1979, there's young kids in this stuff. The material sent to me indicates, this is coming from the White House, the material sent to me indicate one of the strangest phenomena in my memory, said the U.S. Attorney General, Griffin Bell, in a letter to Senator Harrison Smith, according to the Sun newspaper. FBI investigation into mutilations linked to UFOs. Senator Smith, who received a PhD in geology from Harvard University and was a member of the Apollo 17 moon landing crew, said state and local law enforcement officials have been unable to come up with leads on their own, and the FBI help is needed. At least 8,000 cattle and horses have been butchered. Now we've gone from cattle to horses as well, have been butchered with surgical precision over an estimated 1.28 million square mile area, stretching from Tennessee to Oregon since the mutilations began around 1970. The 1.28 million square miles is more than a third of the total land area in the continental United States. In many cases, the attacks have coincided with UFO sightings. Baffled investigators say the strange pattern of the mutilation includes these startling facts. No tire marks, footprints, or other signs of human activity are found near the mutilated carcasses. Only the blood and certain parts of the animals lacking. Usually the reproductive organs are removed. Trace elements found on and in some carcasses are the same as those collected after a UFO sighting in New Mexico. Buzzards and coyotes refuse to eat the mutilated carcasses in cattle. That is the strange one. This is Senator Smith, Harrison Smith. Astronauts and scientists who organized the conference declared either we've got a UFO situation or we've got a massive, massive conspiracy which is enormously well funded. That's coming from the Senator of the United States government. He's not stupid. He knows that there is collusion going on. There is a conspiracy that's factual, but it's actually involving our government as well. More reporting again in local newspapers of the entire area that's affected by the mutilation. Can you imagine all of this meat that we're eating and Americans are eating? Anyway. This is now in the UK. An animal pathology field unit, David A. Caton, Mike Freebury and Phil Hoyle, and others from Oxford University have also been working on this mutilation case, both in Europe and the United Kingdom. You can go online, you can watch the full, I think it's an hour and 40 minutes, of Richard Hall, who much of this information I'm presenting to you today, all credit due to researchers like Linda Moulton Howe and Richard Hall. I feel indebted that so many people have experienced so much literal hell in life to get this information to the public domain, and we as ministers have a right to just finish off that last bit and get the baton to you. Because these people have given their lives, they've risked everything, they've jeopardized everything. Some of them have lost everything, reputation and lives, that this information would get into your hands. So, animal mutilation in the United Kingdom, going back to 1874 now. 1874, near Cavan Island, for several months, something killed as many as 30 sheep a night, biting their throats and draining the blood. In 1905, at Great Badminton, Avon, sheep were again the target for attacks, A police sergeant in Gloucestershire was quoted in the London Daily Mail, quote, "I have seen 2 of the carcasses myself and can say definitely that it is impossible for it to be the work of a dog. Dogs are not vampires and do not suck the blood of a sheep and leave the flesh almost untouched." In a single night in March 1906, near the town of Guildford, Great Britain, 51 sheep were killed when their blood was drained from bite wounds to the throats. Local residents formed posses to hunt down whatever was killing their livestock, but nothing was ever caught. And the killings remain a mystery. Events of this kind have probably occurred regularly throughout history. The cases that have received media attention are those involving a large number of deaths, but there are probably hundreds of smaller attacks that have gone unnoticed over the years. Wow, let me take you even further back. London, 1606. 1606, the earliest known documented outbreak of unexplained livestock deaths occurring in early 1606 about the city of London and some of the shires adjoining. Whole slaughters of sheep have been made, in some places to number 100. In other less, where nothing is taken from the sheep but their tallow, or the internal, and some inward parts, so the fat is the externals, so the externals. The tallow and some inward parts, the whole carcasses and fleece remaining still behind. Of the sundry conjectures, but most agree that it tended, and here's the clue, most agree that it tended towards some fireworks. So this is them trying to explain in 1606 that whenever these mutilations happen, there's some kind of weird fireworks show that takes place that we can't explain. They wouldn't know how to explain flying saucers. Fireworks. The outbreak was noted in the official records of the court of James I of England. Charles Fort collected many accounts of cattle mutilations that occurred in England in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. All over London, this is actually an actual picture taken from Texas, but they found this all over London. You don't hear this on Sky News. That they're now finding cats 7 1/2 with no blood, all around Greater London. But you don't hear about this on 501, Sky News, or RT News, because this is a big game changer to society, major game changer. If people would, and they would just say, oh, it's just a witchcraft, a little witch coven doing their thing. This is all over. This is global, all over our nation. But it's a global thing that's going on. And yes, we know that the Illuminati and Freemasonry and Rosicrucian orders and all these secret societies are all over the world. But the technology to be able to extract organs and blood, leave radiation, animals won't even go near it and eat it after. Animals don't care about their witchcraft rights. Good food is good food. They're not going near this stuff. This is global, and the governments are involved. It gets real dark. Not just cattle mutilation, but human mutilation. Guarapiranga Reservoir, I think I pronounced that right, located in the southern area of the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil, is where we find this case. 1994, and again, this is only when our record starts. This thing's been going on for a long time. 1994, abduction case involves the most disturbing death of a single human being ever seen. The human was subject to a brutal mutilation. Yet the reality is that what happened to him is far more disturbing than brutality. This was systematic mutilation. Whoever they were, so whoever they, this is not one man doing it on his own, it's not some Jack Ripper. Whoever they were had a level of stunning precision. They were specific about what body parts and internal organs they wanted. They removed the left eye, the left ear, the lips, the tongue, and the jawbone. Remember the cattle mutilations? And the entire rectum tract had been cored out, leaving a large gaping hole, similar to how an apple core removal would sliced out the center, leaving the outside fully intact. Further perplexing is the fact that there was no blood. It is clear that this systematic mutilation was executed with speed. When you get any batteries for this? Yeah. You want to swap it over?
Use that one over. That one. Yeah, swap it over.
Yes.
Thank you. 1998, 4 years after the body was found, Brazilian researchers Aparta Garcia and Dr. Rubens Goes revealed to the public for the first time information about the case. The body was found in Guarapiraga Reservoir, located in the southern area of Sao Paulo. But before I come to the pictures about the body, when all of this mutilation occurred to this individual while he was fully conscious. And the way pathologists know this is true is they look at what's called edemas. Your brain obviously registers pain, but they can literally see what level of pain you experience at the point of death, because the brain literally bruises and cells explode, and they can see from the brain when they scan it. These are called edemas, and they happen when you're suffering severe trauma. Literally severe trauma. The brain literally is exploding through the pain. And this is a scan of the brain. So, they know he suffered tremendously when they scanned the brain of the individual. In a case like this, the presence of cerebral edemas without direct traumatic origin, in other words, no physical blow to the brain, is a strong characteristic of an agonizing death. In confirmation, the autopsy's conclusion explicitly states as cause mortis, cause of death, quote, acute hemorrhage in multiple traumatisms. There is a component of causa mortis by vagus stimulation, implying cardiorespiratory arrest caused by extreme pain. So he went into cardio arrest because of the extreme levels of pain he was suffering. The victim shows injuries with vital reaction characteristics. In other words, there is the component, quote, torture. The suggested modus operandi is incisions in soft parts and natural orifices using sucking devices. In addition to the shocking photographs, the fact that the official autopsy report blatantly states that the victim was subject to incisions and use of sucking devices elevates the case in the levels beyond most disturbing monstrosity to ever occur in a human being. So again, the brain is registering extremely high levels of pain and is going into, the body's going into some kind of shock, and the heart, therefore, is giving up. And this is the body. Again, soft tissue around the mouth removed. Again, in the armpit, we notice these incisions in the armpit. Again, forgive the images, are very strong. In the legs, these holes. The groin is removed, ear removed, and anal passage removed, cord out. Within the UK, specialist air servicemen have been enlisted into a NATO team. For decades, there have been reports of bizarre animal mutilations. These attacks are often linked to the UFO phenomenon, but most are unexplained. The government has been approached by a number of investigators and researchers, but they usually get fobbed off. But in recent years, there have been several cases of horrific human mutilation during which hair, teeth, and vital organs are removed, skin is peeled off, mouth and throat cavities stripped and excised. Reproductive organs, worse, post-mortems reveal that all this is done while the victim is alive. I want to say to you, the Hollywood films that you've watched over the years, they've not been science fiction movies. It's the way they leak information to you in the public domain about what's really going on. So I want to remind you, remember Predator? An animal, alien, that comes down and strips its victims of their skin. Remember that? All of this was coming from real life factual accounts that date back before you and I were born. Also, I want to tell you this, the X-Files TV series, were actually real case files from the Pentagon that were leaked deliberately for you to have information. So some of the stories were stories, but the general UFO thing, everything was lifted from case files, and I can show you literal files and show you actual testimonies and stories that just blow your mind. But all of these have been corroborated. Skip down. Richard B. Hall is the man to see. Here's the one that's been doing a lot of research within the UK about the cattle mutilation and human mutilation phenomenon. I want to skip through some of this. No, the missions involved secret areas, this section down here. Missions involved secret areas on the ground that have been affected after military engagement with the UFOs. He witnessed over 30 mutilations. This is actually the specialist operative that works from Hereford, who is, he's known, he's been interviewed, he's been checked out, he's authentic, and he's witnessed over 30 mutilated human beings, all of whom had similar surgical injuries to those found in animal mutilation cases. Richard met with the military source and gathered further information. Since these meetings, he has been searching for evidence to corroborate the claims. There were pictures, hard evidence pictures, proving everything he'd seen. But since that time, those pictures are no longer around and disappeared. But this guy is part of an 11-man team, which I'll go into talking about in a bit. NATO are organizing everything on this part of the world in conjunction with the United States. So there are crack teams based in Hereford and other parts of Europe that deal with all of these sightings. They follow up, they chase, and sometimes they have advance notice before these sightings happen. How that happens is a big question, but they have advance notice before these things happen. It's already been agreed in NATO that these fast response teams will react, will secure a situation, but will ensure that that information never gets out into the public domain. These fast response teams, like I said before, they're based in Hereford, and they cover the entire United Kingdom. They've done Ireland, Russia, Yugoslavia, and most parts of Europe, even some parts of America. These guys are specially trained, have special weapons, tactics to deal with this situation, and I'll tell you a bit more about what these guys have seen. It just blows your mind. But with these guys, they have a very short life expectancy. Many of them, because of the work they did, they started off being in special forces and were asked, do you want to do something different? And they enlist because they want to do something different. They have no idea what they're enlisting into, but once you're in, there's no leaving, there's no talking to anyone. And what these guys have seen is absolutely horrific. But it's very interesting what one of them in particular had to say. In many of their operations, they have seen nothing but human mutilations. They've seen cattle mutilations, but much of it has been human mutilations in the Brecon Beacon Hills and around the UK and Ireland and other parts of Europe. In many cases, in one particular case, it was a young 21-year-old man and a 19-year-old girl, totally skinless, exactly like how you see in Predator in the Brecon Hills or Brecon Beacon Hills, totally skinless. And they had direct contact with what we would call aliens, but the technical term is extraterrestrial biological entity. And they have confirmed these guys do not come from another planet. They actually changed the technical term to be trans-dimensional entities, because I recognize they come from a different dimension. Boom. Reagan and Margaret Thatcher confirmed, had talks to conceal all that we know on the subject. They knew about the cattle mutilations a long time ago. This information was passed on to them. But they sat down and formed an accord that all of this is to be kept stum and how they would deal with it. So Thatcher, on request from Reagan, set up a UK team to handle cattle and human mutilations. Derek Gough, who's one of the foremost useful reporters on the subject, in 2009, contact with confirmed UK military contacts. He had a confirmed UK operative who was a man on the ground doing this work, not investigating it. He was part of the specialist teams that would go and do what's called fast response. In 1997, we received a call from a NATO Black Ops team from Hereford, an 11-man team, fast response, fire and secure team, using special aircraft and Black Ops helicopters at their disposal 24/7. Their beepers would ring and they were off into action. In 1980s, UK, Ireland, Scotland, Spain, Germany, Alaska, Australia, Yugoslavia, Russia claims to have witnessed, these guys, that's where they serve, and they claim to have witnessed 30 to 40 human mutilations. NATO ops ran by the USA, so the USA control everything. All bodies were bloodless, soft tissue removed, using extremely advanced technology. In 1959, Russian hikers were found dead, soft tissue was missing, eyes, tongue, missing organ bodies, dropped, their bodies were dropped, so they had impact concussion to various parts of their bones and organs. The tent that they had was totally shredded, and evidence proves that they fled the scene at night. Even though their bodies were dead in the ground, no animals again would touch their bodies. Here in England, we have Dolby Forest. Again, Dolby Forest has a long history of mutilations being reported by the Forestry Commission. So the Forestry Commission know about these mutilations taking place. Several bodies, human bodies found, hair follicles completely removed. An 11-year-old girl was found in Staffordshire, Cannock Chase. The Brecon Beacons, a family, whole family, in a 4x4 vehicle went missing. Not only were they taken out, but the front seats that they were strapped into, the seats were taken out too. They found the car, no occupants, all seats ripped out. They were found laid out on the roadside with the same injuries. And this is one thing that's common. They're finding the bodies, not just sprawled in any old fashion, the bodies are laid out. Same in America, same in Russia, same in England. And no doubt other parts of the world as well. In the UK, badgers, seals, sheep, foxes, cats, in half small, have had the same small holes. They have the same small holes drilled in the skull for the brains to be removed, even dolphins as well. Sea lions killed in the same corkscrew manner, so it's almost as though something wrapped a tentacle around the sea lion or dolphin or shark and literally just removed the organs that way. Very bizarre. Government investigators are stumped after ruling out all possible acceptable options. The government and independent professional animal pathological field units cannot find cause of death and culprits. You can tell I've been up late at night trying to type this in, and spelling mistakes all over the place, but forgive me. Let's go to Australia, Adelaide. Their reports. The only significant correlation to these mutilations has been their association with unidentified nocturnal lights and dark, unmarked aerial vehicles. Quoted below is a typical example of such reports. This report is dated July 15, 1984, and the Sunday Times in Perth, Australia. Quote, cover-up alleged after UFO-linked animal slaughter. Many reports of UFOs and strange lights in the sky. Farmers in the Adelaide Hills have discovered mutilated animal corpses and burn marks on the ground. In one incident, researchers say a farmer discovered 4 cows with holes drilled into their skulls and the brains removed. Coming close to the end. Prions and the UK mad cow disease. There's a link here. The first notable consequence of mad cow disease, or specifically bovine spongiform, can't even pronounce this word, encephalopathy, thank you, occurred in Great Britain back in 1986 and peaked between 1992 and 1993. At that time, sampling indicated that only 3 of every 1,000 cows were affected. However, the what, how do you pronounce that? Thank you, whatever you said. And financial considerations of the disease were considerable. In response to rapidly growing health concerns to the general population, British health authorities destroyed millions of cattle. Despite these drastic measures, the European Union and a number of other countries banned the imports of British beef. Then in May 1995, the first recorded human death linked to mad cow disease occurred in England. His name was Stephen Churchill. He was 19 years of age and died from an illness that looked like Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, CJD, a disease that usually strikes those over 55. Later, 2 other similar deaths were recorded in Britain that year. When scientists examined the brains of these patients, they found unusual spongiform symptoms. I'm saying to you the obvious: the meat isn't safe. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell us that. The meat isn't safe. The food that we eat is being tampered with from another source. Because remember the old saying, you are what you eat. Right. So affect the food source, you affect the human beings that devour the food. This is why this cannot reach the newspapers. Could you imagine what it would do to the globe if we found out that our food supply is being tainted? How many people eat meat? Right. Everybody likes a bit of meat every now and then. But if you knew that your food is being modified in order to modify you, if you knew that organs were being taken, it's not just about messing with your food. They're creating new species, but to create new species, they need the raw material. And they have the technology to modify even a liquefied brain to use the stem cells. Everything is vital because they found that within cows, they carry very similar organs to you. If they can't get you, the cows are in mass abundance, they'll take that too, but they'll also take you as well. In all the earliest cases of UFOs that they found, and this is one thing that I'll tell you, the Roswell incident was real, it did happen, and on board the craft was bovine cattle and human organs. That's the one thing they don't tell you about the cattle or the human aspect. They found human organs and body parts all over crash craft. I'm getting small in my writing. In Canada, force-feeding vegetarian grazers diseased animal brains. I'm going to leave all this now for now, because this will all be in the presentation. You can read it. Linda Moulton Howe, in her most recent book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, Howe tells of discussions she's had with military intelligence operatives at a very high order, I'll have you know. They told her that the mutilations were in fact being done by the aliens who were testing the animals for high levels of toxins that we humans have put into the atmosphere. They also told her that the black helicopters were a ruse to cover up the alien involvement in the mutilations. They didn't want the farmers to panic. It appears to be working because most farmers, when interviewed, said they thought it was the government doing some kind of secret testing. But it also involves the fast response teams as well. Her books on the subject are An Alien Harvest, Strange Harvest, and Glimpses into Other Realities. And this is that 9-man on women team, 1959, of Russian hikers whose bodies were found horrifically mutilated. And where they were high up in some mountain, and there were no animal tracks whatsoever. But people that live near the area say they see the same thing. Lights, strange lights flying around the area. No helicopter sounds, no jet sounds, just strange, bizarre lights that move incredibly fast. And these are the actual pictures. This is one of the women. Stripped again, gums, eyes, ears missing on the side. Again, all soft tissue and jaw removed on one side. And there are 8 other bodies as well. This was the tent. And they can tell that, I mean, the Russian military went in and investigated the whole case. They can track and see how they were running. And the expressions on their bodies is one of extreme fear and panic. Yet no animal tracks anywhere at all, or human. And this is where they were. The tent was up here, and they found the bodies strewn. Again, laid down, 2 together. Impact marks again on the bodies, so they were dropped. The human mutilation, and this is probably the last slide, confirmed that human mutilations go back as 1930 on the official record, and that the military knows it's been going on for much, much longer. I can honestly tell you, I've listened to the reports and testimonies of the soldiers that go in, and when they tell you that they have seen with their own eyes what we would call aliens, but these are his words, that ain't no alien, it's a demon.
That's it.
Yes.
when you look at this thing, it's a demon. And the reporter said, did it look like a little grain or wrinkle on that? I said, no. This thing was big. He was huge. The look on his face was, they're not friendly. It's completely hostile. Said he could cover 60 meters in a second. Usain Bolt takes 10 seconds or just about under to do 100 meters. This entity can do 60 meters in 1 second. And this is from contact that they've had. Contact. So there have been firefights, there have been deaths, but this is an arrangement between them and the government where they know how to operate when they turn up to a site and the entities are there. He's been on board craft. And all of his team members now, they had no knowledge of what to expect beforehand. They have certain levels of training. But now all of his colleagues all have severe cancers. He now has MS, he's on crutches. Okay? So they suffer as a result of going on board or near these craft. There's more I want to talk about, but that will have to lead to a UFO presentation because there's much more to this whole transdimensional and alien spacecraft. Again, there's no little ETs going back and forth. These are entities from a different dimension, and consistently in reports at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, they've been asked by high-ranking soldiers, are you a demon? Are you a demon? Where are you from? And they sit there, and they speak to mind. They don't use words. They speak mind to mind. This is all spiritual. We call it telepathy, right? This is spiritual. Can you say something?
I was watching, there's a channel on Freeview called Quest, and they've shown an awful lot of the stuff we've heard about today. Usually in the evenings, they show a lot of these type of documentaries that have been governments around the world have been covering up. And one of the ones that I was watching some time ago, who was a farmer from one of the South American countries, and he was from one of the South American countries. He was just, a farmer, ordinary guy, and he found a body, a giant skeleton body, and he did the right thing. He called the authorities, he called the police. The police came. Within hours, the military was there. Within the day, the American Special Forces was there. They took the body away, then made him promise not to say a word about this giant skeleton that he found, but he kept a tooth. And when the reporter that was doing the documentary program said to him, so you have no proof about this body being here, and he took him to the place where he found the body of the skeleton, but he showed him the tooth. One tooth, it was like that. It was massive, and it's probably from, one of the...
There is so much, I know the information sounds incredible, but as I said before, I'm listening to case reports going back to the 30s, and the information is consistently the same.
Yeah, many thanks for staying with us. The recording time on this particular session has been reduced just under 60 minutes, so unfortunately the length of the whole session wasn't covered. But if you want to know more about the other areas that were shared by other speakers, we have one session on the Georgia Guidestones, number 2, transgenics, remember Dolly the sheep, number 3, vaccinations. Did you know that they're still putting mercury into vaccinations? I can't believe that, but they are. Number 4, animal and human mutation. What's that all about? Well, I know my friend has covered a little bit on that one, but there's a lot more else to share. We do thank you for being with us, and again, I'm sorry that we couldn't cover the whole session, but if you go into the site, which is ahavarfellowship.com, you'll see information there and contact details, or if you want to come into the site that we run, which is kctvmedia.com, we cover a lot of other stuff, basically the news behind the news. Anyway, God bless you. Speak to you soon.